Hello and welcome to Conversations in Cleantech, the podcast that celebrates the clean tech industry and the people that power it, brought to you by Brightsmith. I'm your host, Jenny Gladman, and for this fourth season, I'll be interviewing leaders, forward thinkers, and entrepreneurs from around the world to explore the opportunities, challenges, and rewards of working in clean tech, and more specifically within hydrogen. We'll be hearing from individuals with very different focuses within hydrogen, but with one clear goal of how we can fuel a cleaner, greener future. In addition, they'll be offering you some tokens of wisdom to enlighten, engage, and inspire everyone to live their purpose every single day. So today's guest is the co-founder and CEO of H2GO Power, an award-winning spin-out of the University of Cambridge who are developing pioneering energy storage technologies. She completed her PhD at Cambridge University, where she also was a postdoctoral fellow and elected the Cambridge University Engineering Champion. Since 2018, Enass has played a number of roles for the World Economic Forum, including her current undertaking as one of the class of 22's young global leaders. So actually, this episode has been a couple of years in the making. We've tried and failed on both of our parts. So I am delighted to finally welcome Enass Abo-Hamed to Conversations in Cleantech. Enass, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to finally make it happen and join you on this podcast, and looking forward to it.
Me too. So before we go into the questions, do you want to give our listeners a bit of a background? Who are you inside and outside of work?
Yeah, I mean, not much outside of work, but let me talk a little bit about what I do at work. So I run a company called H2GO Power. It's a tech business that Luke, my co-founder, and a few other co-founders have started 8.5 years ago. Believe it or not, started a hydrogen business 8.5 years ago, when we were all at Cambridge University. Back in the days, we were all students, and the idea was very exciting for us. Core tech came from my PhD. This was my IP from my PhD. And since then, we have really built a business around it and moved really to become a hydrogen engineering business and a software business that looks at developing and deploying hydrogen storage infrastructure through partnership and collaboration model with the industry, with focus on decarbonizing major emitting and polluting industries. And the second thing is we have a SaaS platform. We build end-to-end software that allows to optimize decisions made in the cloud in real time of how to better operate your assets and how to make the most out of them economically. And in my opinion, that tool is groundbreaking, and the potential of it will have implications to how you actually control the unit economics and reduce the hydrogen dollar per kilogram cost down. So as you can imagine, this is a lot of work. So that's why I spend a lot of my time actually focusing on that. Outside that, I have a 20 months old twins. I spend a little bit of time with them, and it's a lot of fun. So they keep me busy outside of work.
Lovely. And there's definitely no room for anything else there.
Yeah.
A startup and twins. Yeah, you're a superwoman. You touched on there being the spin out of a university and it being the IP of your thesis, but a lot of people are in academia, but not a lot of people take that plunge into jumping into the world of startups. And I think it's very different. Actually, I had a very interesting conversation with one of your employees, and that was how we met, talking about that jumping out of academia into the world of startups, and where academia, you have lots of time, You can do lots of iterations. There's not always the financial pressure of your backers, and it's wouldn't say easier, but just a lot more steady. And when you get into the startup world, it can be a lot more cutthroat, but I guess also a lot more exciting and have a greater impact on the industry. So, what was the kind of moment when you realized I'm going to take this into the outside world?
Um, it started as a 7-8 p.m. program that I did at Cambridge, which was called iTeams, where you come together with a team and investigate what's the commercial potential of an idea that you have. So they bring the inventor and they make the inventor a supervisor or something like that. They explain the science or what the invention is, and the team go and do market research, speak to companies, and really assess if there is a fit to do something with it commercially or not. This is how it all started. I was really looking for something to do in the evening, which was fun, where I could, meet people and get out of the lab. And it ended up being, something that brought me back to the lab, actually. It really started without any planning or thinking. Have an idea, I want to start a company. It was really like just to entertaining, like what could you do with this? Would this be useful? And just to note, my PhD actually was on hydrogen storage. And I think maybe I was the only person in the department looking at hydrogen storage at the time. But I had a very open-minded PhD supervisor who said you could do whatever you want. And I thought that was very interesting. And the solution could be phenomenal in terms of like transforming industries. Obviously, when I said these exact words 8.5 years ago or a bit before that, uh, people looked at me in a very not so admirable way. That what are you talking about? But it's looking back at it 8.5 years later, it definitely was a groundbreaking idea, and that was definitely a seed for a very, very interesting and fulfilling path.
Amazing. And can you give us a bit of an insight into how H2Go is different from other companies in the space?
We're a technology business, and a core value that we kept over the years from day one is technical excellence. Um, don't oversell. Don't talk too much about what you do if you're not sure that it works and it can deliver. I think mastering the technology and continuously improving it and benchmarking it properly in the market, and then positioning it in industrial applications and forming partnerships to deliver projects at scale based on a very strong technology, and all of that is mostly because of the team and the quality of the people that we hire. That's something that will first bring us all together. We're all tech savvy. We measure everything we do. We overdo it sometimes with measuring things and collecting data and analyzing it. But it works so well if you want to say, here's how we're different from others in the market. It's the strength of the tech and how we convert that into a commercial product based on robust performance differentiators.
Lovely. And you talked very briefly there about the team, but I wanted to go a bit deeper into your co-founder. So yourself and Luca, a solid team. But how did that come about in terms of uniting as co-founders?
So that program I told you about, iTeams, that's where I met Luke. Luke and I did our PhDs in the same chemistry department. He was looking at materials for fuel cells, so he understood the problem of hydrogen storage really well because he was working on fuel cells. And this is what he told me when he saw the advertisement for hydrogen storage solutions. He was like, oh, that's a real problem. I'm gonna I want to go have a look. And when I presented the technology in the first meeting, he connected to the solution. We worked really well together. Luke is the smartest person I've ever met, and we've been together on this journey. And he's a very credible technical co-founder. He's been in charge of actually developing the technology and making sure that everything is working as well as we want it to, so we can really promise the performance that we promise it to the industry. A lot of the technological breakthroughs and the IP in the company came because of him, and we always worked very well together. So and we survived really difficult times because we started really early. So a big part of the journey at the beginning was surviving it and believing in the product and believing in how exciting the technology and how different it was really like what connected us to continue working on it when the majority of the world actually didn't understand it and didn't want to understand it.
And I think that's it. Is some people go it alone, founding a startup, but having someone to lean on is pretty important. I've not been doing it as long as you, but I know that sometimes that moment when the going gets tough, you just need the other person there, and for them to be having a better day.
Yeah, and that was the beginning. And later down the line, everyone else we hired, who actually took the product to the next level, was very very aligned, very similar in terms of their passion to doing something that is technically excellent but very useful as well. uh, and we managed to hire people who were very similar in their thinking, in terms of how well they wanted to do something. They don't want to overpromise or oversell, but they want to build and optimize. And it really matters when you're building hardware, and it really matters when you're building a hydrogen product that could have, I mean, if you did not do it very well, if you oversold it, if you went very very fast to the market, uh, you know th- a lot of things could fail and could not work. And I think I feel very lucky, a lot more than talented, that we managed to hire all these people over the journey, and because of them we are where we are today.
Nice, and you stayed humble. Um, Now, this is the hydrogen series of our podcast. So, actually, when we were going to do this before, it was a different series. So, you are really perfectly aligned to this series. So, it was fate that took us a while to get here. But since we're talking about hydrogen, I wanted to take a step back, and you kind of touched on it. But I did my preparation ahead of our call, and looked at what your PhD was and what that in turn meant. Now I have to read this because my memory isn't as good as yours, but
Oh, I
you
completely forgot about what it was.
the nanocatalytic system. Now, what I would love for you to do is to talk to our listeners who also don't speak chemistry, like I don't, and explain a bit about what that PhD actually was, and then in turn how that became the company.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good question. I hope I can manage to answer it as well as you asked it. So, my PhD had like a few chapters. So one of the things, if I remember correctly, that I was doing was building metastable nanoparticles, making them through like simplifying the fabrication methodology. So you could have a lot of access to the surface of the nanoparticles and make them really good catalyst for hydrolysis, where you can generate hydrogen through the catalytic surface of the catalyst. And one of the things that I really enjoyed doing during that time is actually characterizing these nanoparticles and seeing what shapes they came out in. So that part of my PhD was successful, exceeded my expectations in terms of how reactive the catalysts were, and then I started to look at ways to actually make them more stable, and that was through putting them on surfaces that allow them to remain active and accessible. And I think the sweet IP that kickstarted the company was the concept where I was putting these nanoparticles on a thermoresponsive polymer that allowed switching on and off from generation, storage, release mode on demand by controlling the temperature of the environment. Watching it looked really fun because you could actually see it, and it was an obvious phenomenon that you could see it in your eyes when you activate the experiment. But also the data and the measurement showed us something that was not done before. I think this is the first time that I started to think about, can this be a product? Can this be used in a commercial application if we made a big polymer, not a small one in the lab? And this was the idea that I've taken to iTeams, the program that I told you about, where I met Luke and the rest of the co-founders. And this was heavy material focused on storing hydrogen in materials. And then we've done some work on unit economics, commercialization, who would buy this, how much would they pay for it, and realized that we could use the same concept, the same principle, which is store hydrogen and release it on demand based on changing the temperature. Don't compress the gas because it's going to cost you more, it's going to be unsafe, and there are better ways that could be done with it. And that concept was the concept that we started the company with. What we've done over the years is we really shifted to using materials that are commercially available. We buy them today in tons, in a scale of tons that can be manufactured tons at tons per day, and very well established science, very well established supply chain, lots of risks taking out through the all of the studies and research and manufacturing and industries that scale the process. So we don't do anything with materials ourselves anymore. However, the same concept and the same value in all of the IP portfolio that we have remains the same, but it inspired us to develop a much lower cost process where we build systems. And over the years, we decided to build systems and make them intelligent. So every piece of hardware we build is AI driven. It doesn't work just because you open a valve and when you want it to work. It predicts when is the best time for it to work and does that. But really, the concept is don't compress hydrogen, can convert it chemically and store it, release it on demand through triggering a change in the temperature of the medium. That is a process that we fully automated over the years at scale, and without the need to work at high pressures and compressing gas. What we can achieve in terms of benefits, a process that is around 50% lower in cost, increased efficiency, twice the amount of hydrogen that you could store per unit volume. Uh, and all of these benefits, when they stack, make a lot of practical sense in the industry when you're talking about massive hydrogen projects and massive hydrogen generation systems that actually need to be stored where it's generated.
It's a lot. A lot of changes, a lot of different. No, it's brilliant. It's
That was a long answer.
it was, but it's also good to see that it's one of those things. People think that you have an idea and you start a business and all of a sudden it's done, and it's really not. And I think that's it. Is that it is a journey, and it kind of leads into one of the questions I always ask founders of businesses around the challenges that you've come across along the way, some expected because of general challenges in the industry and economy, but some unexpected. And and what those have been and how you've overcome them.
Really good question. So maybe the first challenge was, if you don't want to talk about idea, product market fit, market readiness, um, just I started H2GO Power during my PhD. I was trained as a scientist. I worked in a group and in a department where things needed to be presented at a specific quality, in a very good way, where you present all the details. uh, you know how scientists present work, all the evidence, all the data. You need to show that you thought about everything. Otherwise, you're not a good scientist. And I came from that mindset, wanting to start a business. So the first few pitches went terribly wrong because I was using the training that I had, which is like, talk about what doesn't work and present it as accurately with all the details, not really thinking about the potential. How could this make money? Which what the business world wanted to hear, and that we're not even talking about correlating that the idea actually did not have a market at that time, because this was before the market. So just the challenge to be taken seriously as a scientist, presenting a business idea, speaking the wrong language, was very difficult. And I knew early on that if I wanted to do this, I have to unlearn some of the presentation skills that are extremely needed for a scientist presenting science results, and learn new communication skills that an entrepreneur pitching to a business audience need to know how to master. And it was very uncomfortable at the beginning because it didn't feel like this was what I was good at. But I was excited to learn. But this was really the first challenge. The second challenge was that actually I was working on an idea that did not have a market at that time, or what's maybe even worse, people associated hydrogen with the failure of the past, because this was, we're talking about 2013, 2014. Nobody wanted to invest in hydrogen at that time. And I remember like all the comments that I used to receive from investors saying, "We you don't seem like a stupid person, but the idea is stupid," or things like that that were really mean. Like absolutely no encouragement that there is a hope to do something about it. So these are I really laugh at it now, but it was really hard at the time. And talking about what was challenging at the beginning, that was very challenging, like getting feedback like that and thinking, I want to continue. I think I believe in it. Also, like, we started the business in 2014 is when we officially registered it. This was before Paris. The decarbonization conversation targets was not a mainstream conversation. Financial markets were doing really well. Oil and gas was doing really well. There wasn't really a need to talk about transition, decarbonization, and where hydrogen fits within all of that. And why was a molecule like hydrogen, that if you generated it in a clean way, why does this mean a very elegant solution for decarbonization? You solve a decarbonization problem, but you also provide a solution for a reliable and clean power supply. And it was just really, really challenging to convince anybody to back us at that point, because the market was not there, and decarbonization didn't mean much to most investors. Having said that, I know that this is a very I went very, very deep into the challenge vertical, but having said that, things have changed so much today that if you'd ask me for advice for somebody who's like an aspiring entrepreneur, I'd say because that challenge, it's not really a challenge anymore today. People understand the need to decarbonize. There is so much space for more entrepreneurs with great ideas, great, incredible technologies to actually really transform part of the industry. And it's actually, although that was the challenge that we've started with, things have changed a lot, and today you have a lot of impact funds, climate funds, the type of funds that did not exist 8.5 years ago, which means a lot more opportunities for backing for entrepreneurs with ideas in the same sphere, and that's very encouraging and very positive.
Hmm. And speaking of that kind of journey through the acceptance of hydrogen becoming an obvious solution, not to tackle the whole of climate change on its own, but being a part of the solution, and just being more readily accepted. Where do you think we are on that journey at the moment?
I think that change is happening. At least the awareness is there today, and a lot of like activism work, actually, not necessarily just the action and the technologies and the scaling work, but a lot of the activism brought to our attention that something has got to change. People are a lot more accepting to data and information that tell us what's going to happen if we don't change, and that makes a big difference in terms of acceptance and the change that happens after acceptance. In my opinion, it's very positive and it's encouraging. um, is it fast enough? A lot more can be done faster. Uh, but is it encouraging? Do we see the signs of change that we need to see? Yes. I mean, you're seeing a lot of industries that would not be open to diversify into decarbonizing their assets, the way they generate energy, the way they consume energy. You'd see them like leading the change today. Some of them are a lot more impressive than others, but there are a lot of positive signs and signals in the market that say change is happening. And I really hope that this is just the start, and we will see a faster pace from a year to a year. And also, I think that the pandemic was a transformative data point on the curve, where people have really felt what does it mean to be locked into an unpredicted event, like having a pandemic surrounding us. And climate change is, and this is just a sample of what climate change is going to bring on us in terms of more unpredicted events. And that did drive a lot of change. And although that was a very negative point in time for many of us, but it did bring positive change and diversion from how things were before that.
And talking of the challenges in the sector, what do you think are the things that are currently slowing the hydrogen space down? Where are the stumbling blocks?
I do think that the fact that you are building a new industry uh, with many stakeholders who are going to do things very differently. So regulations are not unified. Uh, Taxation, subsidies, incentivizing frameworks are very different from a country to another. And you see a lot of effort sometimes being repeated in many different places, in many different countries, which is counterproductive. And that does slow the progression of the industry. And also, you do see a lot of bureaucracy that hold progress back. I see a lot of impressive progress that comes from small businesses and technology businesses really trying to move the needle. And I see a lot of announcements and talk on massive projects that after 2 years you see like there's not much progress, there's not much difference. um, so there is a dynamic environment for sure. Can we move faster? Of course, and we should, but we do have the momentum that we never had before, and that is something that one needs to acknowledge. And hopefully it's just the start of where the industry could go, and we'll see a lot more progress from every year. And frameworks like and incentives like the IRA in the US are instrumental to moving the needle on this industry. And I really hope that in Europe, in the UK, and everywhere else in the world, we just learn how to do things like that. And hopefully that is going to accelerate the progression on all fronts in the industry, from generation to consumption.
And thinking closer to home on the challenges we've talked before, within your business of growing it, and what challenges come with that. So I guess it's always an exciting time for a startup when you can bring more people into the business. And I guess, as you so kindly said about your team at the start, they're the people that are now instrumental in driving that change. Um, but what are the challenges that you find around talent and bringing people into the business?
Such a good question, because people inside businesses are the ones who make the difference. And once you've built something that works really well, you want to make sure that there's a continuation to that. And that will happen through like hiring the same caliber or similar quality of people. That always is challenging, because you have already a culture that you're hiring others to fit into. And sometimes you find people out there who fit, who tick all the boxes but don't feel fit within the culture. And that's for example one thing that you need to think about, the progression of the culture as well, and how it can be more inclusive to a lot more people who could be actually different from what you've built, and make sure that it's going to work equally well. And that's challenge number one, or current challenge. Second, I've had a difficulty in hiring females into the business early on, because we were hiring for very technical roles, and the pool of talent was not that large. So we'd put an ad for an automation engineer, and we'd get zero applicants from females. So it's just very difficult to invent candidates for a job that you have, and at the same time you're a startup that have to move fast. So you just need to. I mean, your hiring process has to have a time range, and that particularly wasn't something that I was very proud about as a female founder. That is changing actually, and we're hiring a lot more females into engineering roles across the business, in the software business, in the hardware business, and the automation business. And that's it takes a bit of patience and learning. And once you hire more people who can help you hire the next batch of people, they can also, if you have females, they'll help you hire more females. If you have people with specific qualifications, they will look for people that are similar to them. And that does help when you're scaling the business.
Yeah, and I think it's also, when you're filling the first roles, each person needs to have 12 hats. And actually, as you grow the business, there's often a bit more flexibility that you can allow in the positions, and therefore a bit more creative thinking about what that person could be. And sometimes in those first 10 or 15 hires, it's so difficult to be flexible, because you know that they need to be this, and this, and you can't really do without it. Whereas I think, once you're in the position you're in now, and you're going from 25 people to 50 people, actually there is more flexibility, and you find those hidden gems that might have been in an industry that you wouldn't have been able to consider a year ago, 2 years ago. And that's where I think you can allow for that flex in the actual hard requirements to meet more of the soft requirements, which is nice.
That is very true, and also the industry is growing, which means that we're not the only ones who are training um, for hydrogen related jobs. There are others, and the experience is being created in the market, and that makes it actually easier to hire experienced people from the market, and that gives like a greater access to a bigger pool that will have the diversity that we're looking for. So it is becoming easier as we're growing. Uh, there are like more opportunities. Obviously, there are more challenges as well. Making sure always that you have a cultural fit, or you actually restructure the business. I mean, not the financial restructuring, but actually every time you add like 10, 15 people to the team, you have to think about policies that everyone connect to, everybody is aligned with, everybody is will buy into. And that's there's hiring and there's the managing afterwards. So that becomes a challenge as well. But having said all of that, we've built very strong infrastructures in the company that building on top doesn't feel as hard as it used to feel 8 years ago.
Yeah, and that's the beauty when you have a great management team around you as well. All of those things on day one that fall to you, where you are commercial, finance, ops, scientist, engineer, everything all on the same day. And actually, sometimes switching from one brain to another is a bit of a challenge. And now you've got that brilliant team around you. It actually allows you to look up and out and make sure that you're looking to the future. And that leads me to my final question, which is what the future holds for you in the business. Where are you headed, and what do you hope to achieve?
Thank you so much for asking this question. I think we dwell too much on the challenges that it feels like that's it. But yeah, having said that, all of these years we've been optimizing and scaling the technology that today it's out in the world, and it's being we've started the stage of metal on the ground and building large scale commercial scale projects. We have a few ones now. Some of them are announced, some of them are not. That we are very, very proud of. And we have industrial partnerships with collaborators who've been like phenomenal to work with. They understand the strengths of the technology. They understand how does it fit in the industry, and they really appreciate how it can transform their businesses. And that is a stage that is very exciting for H2GO Power, because from here onwards, we'll always optimize technology and try and make it better. But we're not building technology anymore, we're deploying it. And what you can expect from us in the future is to see a lot of our systems being deployed in industrial applications, in heating applications. And you expect to see us in different countries. And that is the type of growth that I always wanted to see in the business, and it's finally getting to that point.
Well, that is all extremely exciting, and it must be a really rewarding point of the journey when you can actually physically see it with your eyes outside of a lab. So well done. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you appear in more locations, more industries, and across the globe.
Thank you very much, and I really enjoyed being on this podcast. Thank you so much for bringing me on board and really persevering in the process of keeping up with me, and uh, all the questions that you asked, and the points that you brought up are real pain points, or exciting points to talk about. And it's not a typical conversation that I have on a podcast. It's not very, very market focused. It's really about the journey. And I always enjoy telling it, despite the fact that it could, if I'm talking about the ups or downs, it's a journey that I hope that somebody at a chemistry department or doing a PhD or a postdoc will listen to and think that there is so much that they wanted to do, and because of someone else's journey, they would have a go at starting a business and solving a real climate issue that could scale and grow into a real solution and opportunities for them and for others.
Well, I certainly think your story is extremely inspirational, so I've no doubt of that. And hopefully, some of those people in some of those chemistry departments might be knocking on your door for an opportunity with H2GO Power, because that growth is set to continue. So, thank you for joining us. Thank you for telling your story, and thank you for all of the work that you're doing to help with the decarbonisation strategies.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to Conversations in Cleantech, brought to you by Brightsmith. If you've enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe, like, and leave a review. Every time you do, it helps others to find the show. For more information on how Brightsmith can help you to build a sustainable future through identifying, attracting, and retaining diverse talent, please head over to brightsmithgroup.com. Join us next time for more Conversations in Cleantech.